And here we go. All right. So welcome everybody to our first webinar for Jim Wan's Fast Forward Your Stage Hypnosis Career Training. My name is Corey Osborne and I work here with Jim. I've been mentoring with him for 2.5 years, Jim?
2.5.
Yeah. And am helping to produce this year's training just like I did with the Powerhouse Summit last year. With me in this box is, of course, Dr. Jim Wan, legendary stage hypnotist. And Jim actually did a 2-day stage hypnosis training as part of the Powerhouse Summit last year, where we hosted Sean Michael Andrews and Richard Barker as well, and got such a good response from it that he decided to put together an even bigger, longer, and more in-depth training for this year. And I think once you guys sit through this webinar, you're going to agree that we're not going to find anything like it anywhere else. So Jim, why don't we talk just a little bit about what you did at the Powerhouse Summit in that 2-day training, and then how we're going to expand it for this year.
Yeah. Well, last year during the 2-day training, I had it broken up that it would be a certain amount of theory and a certain amount of practical. And the theory, a lot of it had to do with the marketing, which a lot of people were interested in. But we found that as we went through it, I had all of those materials packaged also that I gave them when they left. And everybody who had attended it afterwards made the observation that they would have liked to have more time on stage. So that's why we've extended it to 4 days this year. We have 3 full stage shows in front of a paid audience at a state-of-the-art stage on a casino here in Iowa. And I think we might even get 1 or 2 other shows outside of the casino to give them experience in an outdoor setting and in a community setting. So I'm hoping we do about 5 shows, but there's going to be a lot of practical application that people really asked for last year.
Awesome. So I just want to take one administrative note. If you guys notice, when you are in the chat, if you type a /, which is the slash on the question mark key, and then a Q, and you type after that, it will display a question for us to answer in our admin panel. So it just a / and then a Q, and then type your question and hit enter, and it will display those questions for us so we can answer those. So Jim, how would you say that your training last year and this year are different from trainings that other people offer?
Well, I think a lot of the other, and there's some great, excellent trainings out there. You've gone through some of them. I've gone through some of them. The people just don't get enough time to practice and to apply the skills. And that's what people want to do. They want to have the stage time. They want to have the practical application time. They want to see how different aspects of it come together, whether it be the pre-talk, whether it be the staging itself, whether it be how you pick volunteers from the different marketplaces, what kind of pre-talk you do for the different markets, how you set up routines, what kind of routines you have set up for this type of a show, how do you move from one routine to another, how do you replace people on stage, how do you move them around to get the best dynamics between the people on stage. It'll make a much better show. So many of the intricacies that we didn't really have time to do last year. And I think a lot of the trainers that are out there, they don't spend a lot of time on these. And these are the things that people have trouble with once they get on stage. And I want to cut those problems off at the pass. Take care of it for them before they get up there.
So this is what you're saying is this is the next layer on top of a basic stage hypnosis training.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now we do have 2 of our students from last year's Powerhouse Summit. We have David Wright, who is actually a full-time counselor from Detroit, who after he came to the Powerhouse Summit, I believe took the name of the Motor City Hypnotist, which is rather cool. And then Tom Roth, who works for the city in Bellevue, is also one of the students who is doing shows right now. So Tom and David, I know you guys are in the chat. Would you guys call in for us?
And everybody watching, you have to kind of excuse us. We've had a few technical difficulties, but we're working through them.
I had a shiny face I had to go blot before the camera came on. There we go.
There's Tom.
Hi, Jim. Hi, Corey.
Good. How you doing, Tom?
Real well.
Hey, there we go.
Hi, David. How are you
All
tonight?
right.
Hey, guys. Tom, what's up? Long time no see.
How are you?
I'm good.
It's like a little bit of a class reunion
It is kind
here.
of a class
That's awesome.
reunion. It's kind of exciting.
So David, would you just take a minute and sort of give us a little bit more of your background and specifically, because I know you had a little bit of background in clinical hypnosis before you started. Could you just sort of give us the 10-cent tour of your hypnosis before and after the Powerhouse
I'll just
Summit?
kind of make a long story short. I'm a licensed professional counselor. I'm practicing in the state of Michigan. I've been doing counseling and therapy for 25 years. So right now I'm the owner and the clinical director of an outpatient mental health clinic here in the southern suburb of Detroit in Taylor, Michigan. And I've actually been using, in one form or another, hypnosis for most of my career as a counselor. I mean, I've always used meditation. I've always used guided imagery. You know, it was probably about the middle, you know, I'm going to say probably 10 years or so before I really started using it, what I call hypnosis, you know, induction, suggestions, all of that. But
a formal hypnosis.
Yeah, formal, if you want to call it that. Okay. So, but as I used it more and more in the office, I got more interested, and of course, you know, the internet's a dangerous thing. So I spent hours watching shows online, and I thought, I want to do that. That's something that just looks, one, it looks just kick ass, and two, you know, I have experience with hypnosis. I can do this. So yeah, I couldn't tell you how many videos I watched of Jim's, of Richard's, I could name 100 different people. And then when this training came up last year, I was actually in contact with Richard over email regarding a training, and then this Powerhouse Summit came up, and I thought, perfect. I got Jim and Richard and Sean all in 1 week. Put it this way, and I think I did a testimonial after that when we were on site there at the casino, and it far exceeded any of my expectations I had for it. I thought I might roll in there and you know, be like, okay, I might be able to do a show, I might not, I don't know, but no, as soon as I left, immediately I was rolling.
And how long after you left the summit did you do your first show?
I think my first full show was within a month.
Wow, yeah. Nice. No, you came down actually too and performed with us in Galena. We actually did a run of shows in Galena at the Charlie Depot Theater where we were performing twice a week, and I was on stage with you or in the back of the stage with you that night, and I've got to say, I think your show was incredibly polished for where you were at that point, and I think. Because like I said at the beginning of the call, I've been mentoring with Jim for 2.5 years, and you can sort of see some of the hallmarks of his polish in your show. And I think it was really a really good experience. And
I will say this, and I know I probably said this in I know we did an interview not too long ago for Hypnosis Day here on the lab. But one of the things that right off the bat is that if you do a training like that, and like I guess you're not going to get, I mean, again, there are a lot of trainings out there, but this one was exceptional. But if you leave that training and then you don't do anything with it, I mean, that's on you, because you have all the tools you need to just start doing it. And that really is maybe the scary thing for some people, is just to start doing it. It's tough to do something new when you've never done it, the full thing by yourself, but that's the best way to do it, is just jump in and do it. And believe me, we're all going to make mistakes along the way. That's how you learn. That's part of the whole process.
Sure, absolutely.
So, Tom, why don't you give us the sort of tour of, because I know you didn't have any hypnosis training before you came to the Powerhouse Summit, right?
No, absolutely none, Corey. Probably the closest I got was watching Jim do a show in Bellevue on the 4th of July 2 years ago. And I remember. So is that what sparked your interest then, is seeing Jim live on stage? To be perfectly honest, there was a guy that ended up in Bellevue about 40 years ago named Robert Mack. The story was his car broke down, and he was doing shows in the area to earn his keep. And I saw this guy. I was in college in Dubuque at the time, and I saw him, and I thought, this is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. But then, he got busy raising a family, and life moved on and things. And so it was the day I saw Jim again in Bellevue, and I'd seen Jim do shows with my kids in high school and those sorts of things, and I've always been amazed at it. But I went up and asked Jim, I said, can I talk to you for a minute? I'd love to learn to do what you do. And he said, why is that? Because I said, it looks like so much fun. And I can honestly say that the Powerhouse Summit, I've said this before, it was one of the neatest things I've ever done, because it took me way out of my comfort zone. It taught me things that I had never learned. I mean, I did not know what a hypnotic induction was. I walked in there stone cold, felt like a fish out of water for a while, got my feet under me, made some wonderful friends, and I honestly would say to this day, it's one of the neatest and best things I've ever done.
Nice.
Well, awesome. Thank you, guys. There was a whole crew that worked really hard on that training, and I know that Jim put in probably hundreds of hours just on that curriculum just to make it what it was. And so I think for those of us that were there on the backside of it, to hear that you guys had such a great time, I think is just a testament to the quality of the trainers. And Jim's knowledge is vast and deep, and I think that really shows through in his training.
I would certainly agree.
So part of the reason that we brought this blab together is, and I'm going to stop again and remind, because I see we have 3 or 4 more people that have joined. If you guys have questions for any of the 4 of us, I don't know why you'd have a question for me, but if you do, if you happen to, in the chat box over here, just type a / and then a Q in front of your question and hit enter, and it will show in our question box so we can answer those as they pop up. So for those of you that just joined, / Q and then type your question, we'll be able to see it. We were sort of chatting over email and on Facebook a couple of days ago when we were first setting this blab up, and one of the things that came up was there were some questions that you know to ask now because you've done shows that you didn't know when you came to the training. What do you feel like are those issues that now you're sort of enlightened to and you would like to see more coverage of, say, in the Fast Forward Your Stage Hypnosis career training?
Well, I mean, I don't know if it's a question per se, but I can say the first, of course, we did the training there. And just for the people who are listening, we were in a live casino setting. This wasn't like a training that we did with just us, the people in the room. We had a live crowd and worked with people on stage. So you just get thrown right into it. So that experience was just, it was invaluable. There's no other way you can learn it except to do it. So for me, it was more so just being there and doing it. And I know since then, since I'm doing my own shows, it's invariably happens. Something will come up where in your head you're thinking, oh crap, but you don't want to show that, of course. But again, I'm trying to think of something specific. I'll give you a good example. I was doing a Christmas party for a mortgage company, and we started out with probably 30 people, and very quickly it was down to like 10, and I was like inside, I'm panicking. I'm like, oh, they're all going to drop out. I'm down the line and just knock them out of their chairs. We'll have nobody there. But again, that's the whole thing of just kind of being in control and knowing that if you just continue to work, it's going to happen.
Well, and I think when people really fear that, David, but what I've found, I've actually stopped shows and started them over because of that exact thing happening. I started to lose a lot of people. I couldn't figure out why. Well, it turns out afterwards when I talked to them, they got distracted by somebody next to them, somebody in the audience, but they were ready to give it a second shot. So I brought them all back up on stage again, and the second time around, out of like, let's say 20, I got all but about 4 because they didn't know what to expect. Once they got distracted, they had their eyes open. They didn't know what to do, so they left the stage. If I had dealt with them with an instant right at that time and stopped it, I probably would have not had the domino effect where I lost the rest of them. I didn't know how to stop it at the time. Yeah. Now I do. Once you stop it, just move right back into it. Nobody knows the difference because you're the expert. You're the expert.
Well, and let me add to that. Over time, even again, doing this for I consider a year a short period of time doing this. But you're right, Jim. They don't know what's right or wrong necessarily. Right. But you have to show that you're in control, because if you don't control the crowd and the show, it'll fall apart on its own.
That's right. You can lose the whole thing. Okay. That's where stage management comes in.
Yes.
So we also have some stuff going out on our newsletter. If you guys on the call are not on our newsletter, go to jimwanstagetraining.com and sign up for that, because what David's talking about, Jim is actually going to cover in depth in the training. How do you prepare your pre-talk for for different markets? How to prepare your volunteers for different markets? When to spend more time on your pre-talk? When to spend more time before the show talking to the buyer and the crowd? That sort of thing. That's actually a module in the new training for Fast Forward Your Stage Hypnosis Career, and we are sending tidbits out over our newsletter. So go to JimOnStageTraining.com and sign up for that. Go ahead, Jim. Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say we have time to talk about a few of those things tonight. Tom, did you have any specific questions you were thinking of?
Well, when you started tonight, Jim, you rattled off a list of topics that you were going to cover, and I thought that's my list of questions. Starting with selecting volunteers, starting with determining how to organize folks on the stage and get them into the best positions, how to determine who's in trance and who isn't and when to dismiss them. I find that to be a challenge because I'm looking at somebody going, are they or aren't they? And how long do I wait to decide if they are or they aren't? And, you know, the one thing I've told people, and I find this really fascinating, if you're a singer, you get up and sing. And you play the same music every night, you sing the same song. If you're a comedian, you can get up and tell the same jokes night after night to a different audience. But when you do hypnosis, every show, and you told us this, and it's absolutely true, every show is different because that committee, that group of volunteers, is going to determine how that show goes. And that is one of the things I find most challenging about this so far, is working with that individual or that unique group of people each time to try and do the best that you can with that group. So any questions related to all of those sorts of things, like Dave said, we've been doing this a year. Sometimes I think the more of it I do, the more questions I generate.
Yeah. Well, so let's just go through some of those. So, for example, Jim, let's go through taking a look at your hypnotized volunteers and knowing whether or not they're in trance.
Well, let's back that up and start at the very beginning, which we'll do at the training. You take control. So the first thing you do is you get introduced. You're on stage. What do you do with your pre-show talk? Each one's different depending on the market you're with. For instance, and this is what I found out over the years. If you have a corporate group, they're going to be a little bit more uptight. They're going to be around the people they work with. They're going to need to have more information. They're going to need to be more comfortable with you. So what I find when I do my corporate pre-talk, I'm more educational, not quite as humorous, because I want them to take me seriously at some point so that when I ask for people to come up on stage, they trust me, right? Rather than making it all ha-ha like you could do at a college show or you could do it in after prom high school. I want them to trust me. So I give them the amount of education that they need. And you can usually tell by watching the group how much they need and if you have to go off in other areas. Usually my talk for a corporate pre-talk is probably 15 or 20 minutes. Or if I do, for instance, post-prom or project graduation, my pre-talk might be 2 minutes maximum because that's all they need. So what you do is you give them what they need, nothing more, nothing less. Also, at the end of a corporate pre-talk, I always ask if there are any questions. If there's anything specific they'd like to know. Sometimes somebody brings something up and then you can move into more detail on that particular topic. When I do a college show, I do probably 1/2 education and 1/2 humor. Where in the corporate show, I might do 25% humor and 75% educational content because I need to get them ready for it that way. With my college show, I probably only take 5 or 10 minutes because you don't need that much time to warm them up and they want to get up on stage. They want to see things happening. And when I go into the training this year, I'm going to go into each one of these modules at a much deeper level, but I'm just kind of giving you an overview right now. If I have a high school assembly, that's totally different than a high school after prom or project graduation. And most people don't understand that you got to vary it to the group that you're at the time. Like again, with the high school assembly, you have teachers there, you have administrators there, you have students there. So you have to have an educational message and content that's going to get the teachers and the administrators on your side. Why did we hire this guy to come in? Last week I did a program in Lexington, Illinois. It was for an assembly to prepare them to take tests. So I spent the first 20 minutes talking about how you utilize hypnosis with memorizing things, with getting rid of test anxiety. And then I brought people down and I did some demonstrations. Because one thing with high school kids, you got to get their attention quickly. When I walk out with a high school show, you get that hypno disc out, bam, you got them just like that. As soon as you have their attention, then you go right into the educational spill. Then you do little tidbits of demonstrations during that. So usually again, I take about half and half. 15 minutes for the educational part. I'm sorry, 50% for the educational, 50% for the humorous part. The after prom, again, not more than 2 minutes. They're not there to learn anything about hypnosis. They're there to get up on stage and have fun. And the sooner you can get them up there, the better. If you're with a casino group or a community or a fair festival, somewhat similar to corporate, but you can use a little bit more humor. So it's the way that you set it up, but in each one of those particular audiences, I give them what they need. And you can usually tell once you get to read their eyes when they have enough, then you move on to the next segment. But I'll go into all of these different markets in much more detail during the training.
And what was the next thing, Tom, was the next thing in that order would be then the seating of the committee, right?
Yeah, it would, Corey. I mean, you've got volunteers. You want to get
selecting the volunteers, again, totally different in every market. If I have a high school assembly, what I do first of all is, and I get a little bit of information about the sponsoring group when I get there. I talk to the principal when I get there. I find out if there's any students that probably should not be on stage for any reason, whether they act out a lot or they're special ed student. I just had a school that I work at in Wisconsin 2 weeks ago, and he had a special ed student on stage, a hypnotist they had 2 years ago, and he humiliated the young man. Well, it turned the entire student body against him. Now, maybe he didn't know his special ed, but if he had done his homework beforehand, that wouldn't have happened. So if somebody comes on stage that they do not think should be there, they let me know. I find a way to diplomatically release that student during the induction or right after the induction when I send the other students back. Because there's no sense picking on that person, setting them out there so that they look different or weird to get them upset. So I find a way to do it. So I talk to the administration. I talk to the teachers. Then when I start picking volunteers, the first thing I do is pick several from the sponsoring group. If it's the student council, they're the ones that hired me to get me there. They're the ones that are really excited about it. I pick a few of the student council students. And then I start with the seniors. The reason I pick the seniors, they already have their niche etched out within the school community. They don't care as much about what other people think. Whereas if you take a freshman up there, the freshman could be humiliated by something they do that would go within the next 4 years. That's not going to happen with a senior. So a senior is going to have more confidence, more experience, and they're almost always going to be a better subject. Now, when I pick the seniors, I also ask them who's excited about coming down. So I pick the ones who are really excited because they're probably the ones that are going to be involved more and get more animated during the actual show. So I pick the seniors, and when I come down, I make sure that they go male, female, every other chair, because that helps the dynamics of the show. A lot of times you'll get a guy that doesn't want to lean on another guy's shoulder. Or the same way with a girl, the same way the guy went to lean on his teacher's shoulder. You got to be very careful with your placement. Also, if I do have somebody who comes down from the high school that after I have my whole committee there, if I see someone that I think is going to be disruptive, I have everybody stand up and I make a number of moves. I'll put the disruptive person on the very end. I'll put somebody who I think has a lot of personality just from what I've seen in the audience. I put them in the middle. So I start putting the people where I think is going to make the best composite show. Now, I usually now 3, 4, 5, 6 times during every show, I replace them. I move them around again to help the dynamics until I find the system that works the best for that group. Very important. Teachers, of course, they're a little bit more, they usually don't want to come down as much. So I usually have the sponsoring group go around and talk to the teachers prior to the assembly and find out if there's 1 or 2 of them would consider it. Then when I ask for teachers, the 2 of them will come down. If I still don't have enough teachers, I've got the seniors now. Now I ask juniors. And I still have 5 or 6 spots left. And I'll say, okay, now sophomores, if any of you can bring a teacher with you, come on down. So then they elicit the teachers. So now I got 4, 5, 6 teachers. I got a good mix of seniors, juniors, and I got a few of the sophomores. But the nice thing is, if the sophomores, freshmen, and juniors like that show, guess what? They're going to ask you back the next year. So now all of a sudden you're getting a repeat engagement because all the seniors are gone. Now the younger people want to get up there and do the same thing. Same way if I do a day-night, totally different. I don't let students during a daytime assembly get hypnotized in the audience because you just have nightmares. You're dealing with it the entire time. So I don't let students in the audience, but I tell them, look, now if you come back tonight, anybody that wants to can be hypnotized tonight. So number one, you develop more of an interest. Number two, you get more people there because it's a fundraiser at night. And number three, you let everybody in the audience get hypnotized at night if they want to too. That doesn't mean you have to bring the younger people up on stage during the show because they don't typically look as realistic, but you still give them the opportunity. Then I also throw in a free self-hypnosis program if they come at night. Also, when I'm doing a day-night program, right at the end of the show, I'll ask the people on stage, if any of you think you might even possibly be coming to the performance tonight, raise your hand. Typically, the direct percentage of the ones that raise their hand on the staging area equate to the number of people in the audience who are going to come back. Then I find one or two of the popular people on stage, response-wise, I give them a post-hypnotic suggestion that they're going to do that night when they come to the show. So I'm stacking it so we get the bigger numbers for the night show. All right, that's a high school assembly. If I go to a middle school assembly, totally different again. I have teacher, 8th grader, 7th grader, teacher. I tell them that I have to have a teacher every 4th chair. So the teachers volunteer ahead of time, and in middle school, teachers always a volunteer, much more so than high school. So I have a teacher, I have an 8th grader, 7th grader, teacher. The 7th grade and 8th grader usually don't act up on one another. If you have two 7th graders together, sometimes they get giggly, start working on each other. 7th and 8th graders usually don't interact that way. So you kind of separate it. If I have a college show, even with college shows, I don't let people rush the stage. Some hypnotists do that, and they'll have 40 people on stage, breaking their necks getting up there, and it causes a lot of problems. So the college show, I'll randomly pick people again, but I'll also allow people in the audience to get hypnotized during a college show. And sometimes during a college show, I can keep the people hypnotized the entire show doing things within the audience itself. Big difference. Corporate. Now, you've both done corporate shows. Tom and David, you've both done corporate shows. That's a whole different ballgame. You go to do an after prom or project grad, everybody wants to do it. You do a corporate show, all of a sudden, nobody wants to do it. Or the person who hired you gives you a list of names that you're supposed to call up and come up on stage without those people even knowing that they're on the list. All right, so right away, you can be sabotaged from the very beginning. If I get a list of names from a company, what I'll do, let's say they give me 15 names and I have 20 chairs on stage. I'll put another 15 chairs on the floor facing the stage. I'll let the people who they selected come up on stage, but I'll also get another 15 to sit in the chairs down below, and I'll give them a chance to be hypnotized too. Usually I'll lose the ones that don't want to be up there, and I'll fill them in with the people who are down in front that volunteered on their own accord to come up. With a corporate show, the way I typically do it is try to induce them to come up by anybody who comes up on my stage. We're going to have a lot of fun, but I also want to help you to make a change. That I'm here for you too. So at the end of the show, if you want to take off weight, if you want to become a non-smoker, if you want to find a decent fall asleep at night, whatever the case might be, at the end of the show, I'm going to give you a card that's got a code on it. You'll be able to go to my website, go to my store, pick out any self-help program. They're $20 a piece. What am I doing? I'm giving them a card and a free download, which is not costing me anything, and I'm advertising my website and my store to everybody else in the audience for other sales. But anyway, now I'm giving them something so they got more of an ownership. They come up because now they have a chance of making a change in their life. Also, and Tom, you've seen me do a couple corporate shows. I interview the people on stage before I start the induction. Now, why do you think I do that? Any idea? Either one of you?
If I had to guess, I'd say to put them at ease.
It's what?
Put them at ease.
Put them at ease. First of all, were you going to say something, David?
No, yeah, I'm just thinking. For me, if I mean, I want to find out kind of what their personality type is, kind of know who is more apt to be suggestible, I guess, because you can talk to people for like a couple seconds. You already see in their eyes and their attitude if they're going to really give this an honest try or not. That's right.
You figure out a lot about them. I find out who they are, what they do. If they work, go to school, don't do anything, I don't care. Because I tell them that what they do helps me decide what I'm going to do for my show. I tell them I haven't decided what I'm going to do for my performance yet. I build my performance around the people on stage and the people in the audience. So if I find out what you do on stage, it's going to be easier for me. Then the third thing I ask them is, I'm also going to help you at the end. Is there something that you'd like to work on when you leave here tonight? And if it's something that's really perverted, whisper in my ear. No, don't do that. So is there something that you'd like to work on tonight? Well, let's say I find out that the guy is the chief of police. All right. So I give him a role that fits the chief of police during the show. Or I'll come back and say, wow, Tom Roth is the chief of police in that town. You do that again, I'm going to stick him on you because he's chief of police. I had a guy that the other night that worked where basically he worked in the city of, I forget what city it was, but he worked in the department that handled all the waste. And, I used him all night long. If you don't like that, then we're going to take the shovel and he's going to take it where he wants. Anyway, what you do is you find things for those people that you might be able to bring back into the show. I think you saw that night in Bellevue, Tom, where I used a couple people that way.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so I'm gonna break in here again just real quick, Jim, because we've had another 5 or 6 people join. So just real quick here, everybody, we are covering the 2 gentlemen down here are former students of Jim's from the Powerhouse Summit training we did last year. We are expanding that training this year, and Jim is now putting on a 4-day Fast Forward Your Stage Hypnosis Career training. What we are discussing now are some of the topics that are going to be covered during that training. Jim is actually going in depth, and even for those of you on the call, this is some stellar information right here. Jim is going to have modules on all this stuff that we're discussing tonight, and we'll be sending emails out about this on our mailing list. So go to jimwand.stagetraining.com, and sign up for our email list. Also, for those of you that just joined, if you have questions for any of the 4 of us, if you, in the chat box over here, if you type /Q and then type your question and hit enter, it will come up in our question panel so we can answer those for you. We're going to leave the question panel open as we have this discussion, so feel free to ask any questions and we will answer those as they come up. So for those of you that just joined, my name is Corey Osborne. I work with Jim, and I've been mentoring with Jim for the past 2.5 years. Down right below me, it's like the episode of the Brady Bunch. That's David Wright. David is Marsha. Marsha. And David is a licensed professional counselor from Detroit that came to the Powerhouse Summit last year and does stage shows as the Motor City Hypnotist. Over below Jim down here is Tom Roth. Tom is are you city administrator, Tom?
I'm city administrator, Corey.
City administrator of the city of Bellevue, does hypnosis shows as Batman.
He's a very important person,
I'm kidding.
In my own mind.
Tom is also a former student who took what he learned at the Powerhouse Summit last year and is applying it to do stage shows now. He went right out. Both of these gentlemen went right out and got some shows. We are discussing some of those second-level questions, about those questions that come up after you've done a few shows and you'd like those questions answered. So that's what we're discussing now for those of you that just joined us. So go ahead, Jim. I know that there were a couple of more things that Tom, you and Tom had discussed earlier. I just wanted to make sure that the folks in the chat were up to date.
Yeah, right now we're talking about getting volunteers on a corporate group, which is much more difficult than in college. And I got ahead of myself a little bit when I started interviewing him, but how do I finish filling the stage up? When I get to a certain point, let's say I only got 4 or 5 people on stage, I say, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to turn on some music. I'm going to leave. And when the stage is full, I'll come back. And then I just leave. I leave the stage. I walk away. I go up by the bar, get a glass of water, bottle of water. And at that point in time, they pretty much fill the stage up. The people on stage encourage people in the audience encourage people, because they know they're not going to have a show and I'm not going to come back until they get the stage full. Rather than you having to stand up and trying to beg them, who's this guy trying to beg me to get on stage? Well, now you got your boss encouraging you, or you got your coworker encouraging you. Okay, I'll go up, I'll give it a shot. So you want to give them as many inducements as possible. One, that free download, and it doesn't cost you a penny. And it also advertises your other product. Number 2, if I also tell them that if they're kind enough to come up, and I usually work this out with the buyer beforehand, that I'll send that buyer back a copy of the video from that night. I'll say, Beanie, you're kind enough to come up on stage. You'll also get your own personal copy of the show too, because you're going to be on stage. You're not going to be out in the audience, right out there. I want to make sure you get a chance to see it. So I do as much as I can, and I treat them with a great deal of respect. And once I get the stage full, then I come back up. And at that point in time, I pretty much, I find out also if anybody knows anyone else, if they work in the same department, if it's a corporate thing. I start moving people around right away because I'm starting to get that compliance. They listen to me, I move them, it's compliance. You start, like Tom mentioned, You have to get control from the very beginning. So now you're managing your group from the offset. You're starting to get that compliance.
Sorry to interrupt you, Jim. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I wanted to add to that. I was going to lead right into that point. Once you have them there and you start, people will do what you tell them to do as they get up on stage. You're already building that compliance. They're already listening to you and doing what you're telling them to do. So you're just setting everything up to go forward at that point.
That's right. They listen to you then, they're going to listen to you later. The other night I did a show where there's these guys in the audience that were a couple characters, and when I was getting volunteers, the two of them got up and they started walking. Oh, you two, we got 2 more volunteers. Oh no, we're going out to the bar to get a drink. I said, really? I said, I got a wireless microphone. I'm going with you. So I went out to the bar with them. I said, you come up on stage, we'll get you a drink. So we got them a drink. They called me up on stage. One of them turned out to be a rock star, but I went right out and encouraged them to come up, but I became part of it. So anything you can do that's kind of out of the box, people like that too. And what does it do? It creates another element of entertainment. I jumped off the stage and went running back there. That's entertaining. What's this guy going to do next? So they never know what you're going to do next. But getting the compliance. Once you have all your volunteers up there, then just for good measure, I have them all stand up and I'm moving. And the second or third time I might move them, maybe no rhyme or reason, other than the audience is wondering why I'm doing it. On stage are wondering why I'm doing it. But there must be a reason. I'm the expert. I know. So this must be what it's going to take to get me hypnotized. So if I find someone that's really big, I tape my chairs together. You both know that. And when you have them taped together, sometimes you get a really large person and some other people squeeze between them. I'll have everybody stand up, and it won't look like I'm picking on that guy, but I'll move him to another place where there's a thinner person next to him, or he's on the very end, or whatever the case might be, so that other people are more comfortable. Because if you're not comfortable, you're not going to get hypnotized. So you want to make sure everyone's comfortable. You want to make sure nobody's sitting next to someone they know extremely well. You want to make sure if you do have someone who seems to be the company clown. And I found that the people who are the most boisterous usually, believe it or not, make the worst subjects. Once they get hypnotized, they don't do anything. It's out of hypnosis that they're the clown when they're hypnotizing. It's interesting. A number of years ago, I did the National Clown Convention in Oak Cliff, Wisconsin. I thought this is going to be a snap. All these clowns, right? Well, they didn't have makeup on. I got them hypnotized. They didn't do anything. They just sat there. They didn't do anything because when they don't in costume and makeup. So what did I have them do? I had them get out an imaginary mirror and put their makeup on, and it worked. They put their makeup on, thought it was on. They're clowns again. They can do what they want because they're hidden behind the makeup. It worked perfectly. But I was drawn for straws. I was really thinking, what am I going to do next here? How's this going to work? I thought, well, clowns are really funny when they got their makeup on. Let's see if that works, and it did. So you just keep trying things until it works. And sometimes you get your best bits, best stories, best routines out of things that could potentially, really cause you problems.
Mm-hmm. And I will share with you guys one of the things that Jim helped me develop for my show very early on is a way to get volunteers that places the responsibility on the group. So you guys saw the theater in Galena, and occasionally we would have some really small groups in there, or a very small corporate group. After this, I will never fear doing small shows again. And Jim helped me develop this line, and it goes something like this. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been on stage in front of 5 people. I've been on stage in front of 1,000 people. Each show is different. The big shows are nice because it's like you're at a rock concert, but here's the thing. I love doing small groups like this, and I will tell you why. Because at small groups like this, where you guys paid for me to come here, and you are here for this experience, you guys are invested in making sure the show is successful. So when I call for volunteers, usually what happens in groups of this size is the chairs fill right up because you guys are interested in making the show successful. You don't want me to stand here and talk to the air for an hour and a half. And I have used that line since Jim helped me develop it for the last 2.5 years, and I have never had a problem getting volunteers in small groups. So, and a lot of corporate buyers, they're thinking, they don't know how much they spent. Did they hire me for $500 or $5,000? If they're sitting there thinking, well, if he paid $5,000 for this guy, I don't want to not see a show. So that's just sort of a way to put that responsibility back on that group to fill the chairs before you even call for volunteers. And that's worked, like I said, real well for me.
Well, and the other thing I've done a few times with small groups is I say, you know, we're here to have a lot of fun, but I'd like everyone to get something out of this too. So I think what we're going to do is I'm going to do a demonstration where I'm just going to hypnotize everyone lightly and then do a couple exercises. So I hypnotize the entire group. I do a few susceptibility exercises when they're in a light hypnotic state. I find out who are the ones that respond best. Then I go out and I ask them, after they come back out, would you be kind enough to come up on stage? Would you be kind? I don't ask them to volunteer. I say, would you be kind enough to come up? Would you be kind enough to come up? So I actually go out and I direct them to come up. And then if I only have 4 or 5 that are really reactive, here's another thing I do in my shows, and you'll notice this too, is have you ever had a show where you have 4 people down here that are extremely responsive and the rest of them are doing nothing at all? They're dead wood. You can make any show animated just by taking an active person and put them about every 4th chair. That's going to get other people moving too. So you do what you need to do. But what I did was the last small group I did like that, I had 4 people come up. They're really good subjects. I knew they were going to be. Then I got 4 more people, and I put them between them. So out of about 20 people, we had 8 people on stage, and all 8 of them got hypnotized. It was a great show. If I had done it differently, it probably wouldn't have turned out so well. But it was what it was, and it worked out great. So any show, you can make a good show. You just have to think out of the box.
Okay, so we've got it. Kenda's been putting questions in the chat bar for us as they come up in the chat. So let's take just a couple of the ones that are in the chat bar here, and we'll answer these. So the question, what if no one volunteers, was asked in the chat a little bit earlier here.
If no one and I don't know if this is a corporate show or a high school show. If no one volunteers, I look at a couple things. First of all, I must have not done a very good job in my pre-talk. Maybe there's something else I should have done. So I go back into maybe a different aspect of the pre-talk that I hadn't gone to before. Like maybe some people might be afraid to come up because they're afraid of what they might do when they're hypnotized. They might cluck like a chicken, or they might bark like a dog. So I assure them the things that they might be afraid of right now, that's not going to happen. Absolutely not. Then that's when I walk off the stage and say, I'll start the show. I've never had a stage yet where I walk off the stage and people don't fill the stage if I tell them I'm not coming back until the chairs are full. I've never had that happen one time. I've had to stay off stage 15 minutes once to get the stage full of 30 people. And out of the 30 people, 22, 24 were great subjects. But they needed a different way of encouragement. That's another thing, too. If you want to add a little bit of merriment to the corporate group, I did this in Bellevue, where Tom saw my last show. Just before I get ready to hypnotize him, I said, oh, by the way, is there anyone here who needs the restroom? Because if you need to use the restroom, you might want to, well, that gets a laugh from the audience. You know, oh, could something happen? Well, if one of them, you watch what happens, one of them gets up to go to the restroom. I say, now make sure if there's anybody else that has to, all of a sudden you get 6, 8, 10, 12, 15 people leaving to go to the restroom. And as they walk out of the room, I look at them and say, you know what? That's susceptibility suggestion right there. So then I go into a few more stories about hypnosis while I'm waiting for them to come back up. Because if somebody really has to go to the bathroom a lot when they come up on stage and they're trying to hold it, they're afraid to get hypnotized, and they don't as a result of it. And they might fidget enough to get other people to not come out of hypnosis too. But that person who asked the question, and I'm not sure who it was, Corey, but who asked the question, if you walk away from the stage, you will fill the stage up. You just tell them you're not going to start the show until the stage is full. It will fill up for you, or at least you'll get enough people to do a show. I've never had that in 10,000 shows. I haven't had enough people go up and do it.
Okay, so the other question that's in the chat is, you mentioned earlier, and I think people who have seen your show or worked with you know that you tape your chairs together for safety and for the cohesiveness of the group. But there was a question asked in chat that instead of tape, can you use zip ties instead?
Yes and no. And what I mean by that, number one, it depends on the chair. If you have folding chairs with very smooth legs, I find 2 things happening. Especially if you put the zip tie below the support, they'll bounce off during the show. Also, the thin zip ties, if you have an animated group, they break them. But they do have the heavier duty zip ties. They do work. But what I found to make them work, you put them up higher in the chair, above the support where they can't slide off. So yes, the zip tie can work just as well as the tape, as long as it's thick enough and the placement is proper I've used zip ties a number of times.
Okay.
Cool. Just let me add to a question, Jim. And I know this is a personal preference for safety reasons, but out of all the people that you've worked with, how many people tape their chairs together or secure their chairs? Because like I said, I've watched hundreds of shows, and I think that's a rarity, and I find that to me, I just think that's an accident waiting to happen.
Well, it's not only the safety factor, but here's the thing people don't realize. When a person's hypnotized, they're very aware. I was at a show in Vegas, and by the way, I always tell stage hypnotists, anytime you're at a stage show where you feel comfortable with the hypnotist, they ask for volunteers, go up on stage. You're always going to learn a lot more from the other side. That particular night, I was on the end of the group, where you're very aware of what's happening when you're in a group on stage. Well, I found that I was on the end, but I got the next person to me very animated. And I could tell there was another person on the other end, very animated, but people in the middle, there's no animation at all. So the show was on the two ends of the stage. If that hypnotist had taken myself or the person next to me, spread us out, we would have got the whole stage going. But with that being said, if you have your chairs taped together, when there's movement, people down the line feel the movement. If they feel the movement, they respond to the movement. If the chairs aren't taped together, they don't feel that. They don't feel that movement between them. So not only is the safety factor there, now it gives you more of an animated show. Because as the people around you are moving more, you start moving more. Pretty soon the whole line's moving more, and now you got an entirely animated show that you could have had fell apart. And I've had people who didn't have the chairs taped, especially after prom and Project Grad. I saw one night where a guy had a chair wrapped around his neck, folding chair, accident waiting to happen. Another chair, guy fell off the chair came up, hit him on the top of the head. Another accident waiting to happen. It's just a matter of time. That's why these insurance companies, well, one of them, specialty folded, and that was one of the reasons because they had so many claims.
I hate to harp on this one, but again, I've even just recently, I saw a couple of shows where people were actually picking up chairs and they're doing the scary skit with something in their hand, and these weren't like folding chairs. These were those conference chairs that you get at the hotel conference rooms.
Sure.
So those are heavy, and you had 2 or 3 people. One held it up, one threw one across the floor. That's at that point you're just out of control.
Well, and I have something in my show called the control factor. What I do, and everybody should have one of some kind. Mine's a whistle. I tell them early on, especially in an animated group, anytime I blow the whistle like this and I blow it, you freeze. No matter what you're doing, you freeze. Because if you have 20 people trying to do different things at the same time with chairs and you can't control them, what are you going to do? You have them freeze, and then you tell them what's going to happen when they become unfrozen, and then unfreeze them and have them put those chairs. If you're not going to tape your chairs, then find a way to control the people who are sitting on the chairs, not to cause an accident to happen for them or anybody else. But you have that control factor. A whistle, you can blow on the mic, you can yell stop. You have to have one thing, and a whistle works for me really well. That's what I use. But I call it my control valve, safety valve.
Yeah.
The other thing that taping the chairs does too, especially if you have folding chairs, is it makes them less likely to be able to fold up. And if you see the structure of the side of the folding chair, you've got the seat, and then the legs come down like this, and there's always a little arm that sort of holds the seat in place. Mm-hmm. And it's right there where you would reach down to grab the chair if you were sitting on it. And the second that chair folds up and catches your finger, that's an accident waiting to happen. Yeah. So with folding chairs, even if you're at a corporate group where you don't have the high school level of animation, I always think with the folding chairs, it's such a good idea to tape them up or otherwise immobilize them, zip ties, Velcro, whatever, just to make sure that people can't fold their fingers up in them. I mean, it's that's probably the easiest preventable thing right there.
And that's the same way of leaving a lot of people laying around on the floors once they fall off their chairs. I was watching Hypnosis at a high school show last year in one of the local high schools. And the first thing I noticed when I looked at the stage where it was set, it was the stage was 8 foot deep and 32 feet wide. So there wasn't a lot of depth, but he had the folding chairs right in the middle of the stage. So there was like 2 feet in front of the chairs, 2 feet behind the chairs. And that's where he started the show, with these real animated high school kids. Plus, when he asked for volunteers to rush the stage, he had all 20-some chairs filled, and he let people sit all over the stage to get hypnotized too. Then people who wanted to come up out of the audience who didn't want up there, when he wasn't looking, they snuck up on stage and they fit in with the other people lying on the floor. Well, all of a sudden you had people falling at each other, knocking the chairs over. Again, it's just an accident waiting to happen and a lawsuit waiting to happen. So you always want to take control. I don't care if you don't want to tape your chairs together, fine. Find a way to control it. If you want to let people lie on the floor, do it in a safe way. And there are some hypnotists that basically push to have people on the floor. What I do, and I don't know if you've seen me do this before, Corey, but University of Nebraska-Lincoln a few years ago, I had 15 chairs and I had 18 really good volunteers. So what I did was I took 3 of the volunteers and I asked them if they've ever been on a Velcro wall before. And I Velcroed them to the wall. I had told them they had a Velcro suit on. I Velcroed them to the wall. And they're stuck the whole show. They were Velcroed to the wall. Everything the people on stage did, they did. When they went back into hypnosis, they just slumped back over, stuck to the wall the whole show. So you can do things that's funny with those people without having to lay on the floor and possibly getting stamped on. I think there's another question here. When doing a show with another hypnotist, or 3, how do you balance power through the show? Well, number one, there aren't a lot of duals, let alone triples out there, people doing it together. I know last year you saw it at the Powerhouse Summit. We had 8 people, but they all did it separately, as one at a time. We never had 2 or 3 out there except for the MC. You have to, when you have 2 or 3 people, you definitely have to set up parameters ahead of time. For instance, this is where you're going to go on stage. You're not going to walk in front of this person when they're talking. You're always going to be in the background helping that person. If they're doing a skit, be behind the chairs and help maintain the people and the order and staying in the chairs when you're behind them. Let the other hypnotists work out in front. 2 hypnotists, and we've added a dog to our show lately. So now we got 2 hypnotists and a dog, which is kind of interesting.
Is she around, or is she in Jim's office?
Golden Transfer, that's her Facebook page. Stella the Golden Transfer. Actually, what I do with her, and this is what's known as a hypnotic gimmick of sorts. The farm groups love this. But I turn on the music, wheel the dogs out. Stella comes running up on stage, turns around and waves at the audience, then turns around and looks at the people on stage. And I tell them the next time, I tell everybody on stage, you can look up in the ceiling, but then the next time a dog barks, they'll go right back in hypnosis. She turns around, barks, they all go whoop, back into hypnosis. She turns around, she bows. She stays there until I tell her to leave, and then bad to the bone, she leaves the stage. I mean, the audience is eating that up. So if you have something a little bit different like that, unique, out of the ordinary, it doesn't have to be an animal, but something else that makes your show different from anybody else's. So, but in terms of numbers on stage, 2 or 3, you get more than that. You get more than 2, and I think it's going to be a problem. I've never worked a whole show with 3 hypnotists.
Okay, so Jim, we're rolling up on 8 o'clock here. How obviously we have tons of questions and tons of feedback. How late do you want to go with this?
Well, we'll only go another 15 minutes tonight, quarter after.
Okay.
And then we're going to do another blab the week after next. And we're going to hopefully get more questions come in. Hopefully, David and Tom, maybe you can throw some more questions at us because I know you have a whole bunch of them. And by you being, I guess I'd like to ask the 2 of you something. What would you say you gained most from the training last year? And if you were to return this year, and it sounds like both of you are, what would you like to have added this year?
You want to go? Actually, I'll start. The most important thing that I got last year was confidence. Because coming into it, again, I knew how to hypnotize people. I've been doing it in an office setting for years. But to do it in front of people, to 20 or 30 people rather than just one, that's a whole different ballgame. So I think that the best thing that I gained through that training was confidence. Because at that point now, okay, I know I can do it. I just have to start doing it.
So do you feel, David, like that came more from the class time or the practical on stage stuff, or a combination of both?
Well, you know what? I would say a combination of both. Because again, we were there. Last year it was 7 days, and We did a lot of class stuff, but the great thing is we were all learning together. I mean, Jim was teaching, Sean was teaching, Richard was teaching. We got different views. Corey was there the whole time, who had experience. I mean, we just had so much influence from a lot of different people. And then when we put it into practice for the shows, it just kind of progressed naturally into that. So by the time we hit the stage, we felt like, okay, this is not so scary. I mean, it is always a little scary. You want it to be that, but when we took the stage, it was like, yeah, I should be doing this. I feel good.
And I think that's
the reason I asked that question is because there are not a lot of stage trainings out there that actually offer you live stage time. And in addition to not offering you live stage time, this is in one of the premier casinos in Iowa. This is not like a bar or, we are offering you with fast forward your stage hypnosis career, real stage time during a real show in a real casino, state-of-the-art showroom. We have some pictures up of that showroom on our website, folks, at jimwanstagetraining.com. I think you guys would agree it's a beautiful facility. And the reason I asked that question is because there aren't that many trainings out there where you can get real live on-stage experience.
And then the other thing, let me add to that, Corey, is that was a great experience. But one of the best thing was coming home and showing people that I knew what I did while I was gone for the week. They see a show in a casino set up like that, and I'm on stage hypnotizing people.
Instant status, right?
It looks amazing to have video of that and just be able to say, yeah, this is what I was doing. Yeah, that was fantastic.
So you're sort of like, yeah, I know.
It's like, yeah.
What about you?
All right, Tom, what about you? It's the same question.
Well, I said that was one of the neatest things that I've ever done, and I bought some DVDs online to try and learn how to do stage hypnosis. And I said it was like going to medical school and they hand you the books and say, okay, next week you're going to be doing surgery. And you go, but so being with Sean and Jim and Richard, both in the on the stage and in the actual educational session sort of thing, really got me to a point where I could take it further. And there was no way that I was ever going to get to that point on my own. I needed that influence. I needed that confidence that David talked about. We got comfortable with the group of people we were with, which I think was really critical.
Yeah,
I made some friends that I'll stay in touch with the rest of my life.
Absolutely.
And, I honestly can say it was one of the neatest experiences I've ever had. But going back to everything Jim's talked about tonight, as you move down this path doing these stage shows, it's a never-ending learning process. And I know Jim and I have talked about that. The day in Bellevue, you told me there were 3 things in this show that never happened before, ever happened to you, and you had done 10,000 shows. So what would I like to see out of additional training? All of the things that we're talking about, even some refresher, because having gone through 7 days last year, you know how retainage is. I maybe retained, 20%? Just talking tonight, I remember hearing last year, but when I'm on the stage, it's kind of gone and trying to multitask and make everything happen at once. And so reinforcement, I can't say enough good about the training I got last year, and I couldn't, and I can't wait to go back.
And what you just said, Tom, about learning, you learn more by doing. That's why this coming year, this coming June, there's going to be a lot more doing. I'm going to offer small mini shows for the people who work at the casino. I have a 2-year college that we might go and do a noon show at the 2-year college. We're going to have a chance to do street hypnosis before and after the shows. We're going to have a chance to be on the show and on that stage with 500 paying customers that came to see the Hypnotica. We're going to have at least 4 to 8 hypnotists working each show. So we're going to give a lot more practical. Plus, I put something together on how you determine who to put where. I come up with little names like Debbie the Distractor, Tony the Troublemaker, Glory the Giggler, Larry the Lethargic one. And I put signs on all the chairs, and then I'm going to have you, Tom, go up and say, okay, these are the people on stage. Where are you going to put them? You're going to take the signs, you're going to move them. All right? So that you can actually see why I put her over here, why I put him over here. And those things, oh yeah, Gloria, the giggler. She's giggling right here. So way of learning.
It's like a series of demented children's books.
Yeah. Plus, what you're going to do with this particular one is we're going to actually write new material. We're going to write new material. One of the questions, how do you keep shows original and unique? Now, most of you probably know with myself, after every show, I make in-depth notes on everything I did in terms of the sound, how hard it was to get the volunteers, how many people were there, how many volunteers I kept, and every particular thing I did. So if I go back there next year, 95% of my shows are repeat dates, I change the entire show. Because what you have to learn with the repeat dates, you can raise the value, and raise the price. As long as you put more value in it for them, they're going to be willing to pay you more money. You're also going to get more referrals. But the things that you have to remember is if something happens on stage, use it to your benefit. And when you're trying to remember what specifically to do with other aspects of your show, you'd only see these little things. Case in point, a couple of years ago, I started doing a thing at college shows, not corporate. It's very important, too, that you use the right kind of technique. We're going to spend a whole lab session on what to use when in terms of material on stage and what I do with my shows. But anyway, I did a thing at the end where on this particular campus, there's a fire station. And they had this fire on. And they had these firemen. And I told this one guy, I said, anytime I say a certain word, your backside's going to be on fire. But in order to control him, I told him that he had to move in slow motion. He could not move in fast motion. And then I told two girls that are the firemen, they're going to put the fire out. They can blow on it, stomp on it, do whatever they want, put the fire out. And then when I blow the whistle, they'd realize what they're doing. They sit back down. Well, on this particular night, I had drank part of a bottle of water. I set it on the stage. And without me knowing it, the third time I had to do it, the girl grabbed the bottle of water and dumped all of it back to the guy's pants. Well, that got a huge response to the audience. So the next show, when I did it, I put a bottle of water out. Now, after about the third time, she didn't do anything off the mic. I said, there's a bottle of water over there. So I actually prompted her to do it, and she did it. So you can set it up, and it becomes one of your best bits that you can use. And that's something you didn't even have to think about coming up with. They came up with it for you. So watch everything that's happening on stage, and you can pick things that you can use. In the upcoming lab sessions and also in training, like I say, I'm going to take when I do a show, I usually have 20 to 25 skits that I think I might use. I don't select them. I always, and we're going to go into this more in the next session, I always start out with something a little bit safer and a little bit slower for corporate. And of course, you do that too if you do the orchestra. I found the hand clap, and I'll explain that more another time. It's a really good way to get them involved. But I did something the other night, Tom, in Bellevue, not Bellevue. I was doing the Cattleman's group, and I had a really small stage. I had 15 people up there, but it was kind of configured like this, like a V. And they wanted me to do something with bulls. Well, at the end of the show, I had this bull, and I was going to have this guy ride it. But it was a high stage. And I couldn't figure out how I could have this guy ride it safely with the 500 people in the audience able to see him. If I put it down to the floor level, it would be safer. So again, I said, when the meter starts, you're going to ride the bull in slow motion. And he gets up, and I go, 1, 2, and he's going, and the two bullfighters. So it's all in slow motion. It made it longer. It made it extremely funny, and it kept it totally safe. So I was able to accomplish everything that I wanted to do. So all the things that I'm going to do in the training is going to be much more detailed. Even the things we talked about tonight, we're going to go out and we're going to practice every one of them and show you how you can change it. Same with stage configurations. I have probably 10 different configurations I use. I use a U-shaped configuration. I use a horseshoe configuration. I use a two-line configuration. I use an extended two-line configuration. You've never seen this before, Corey. What I do is when I have an intern on the road with me, the very top of the house, like let's say if we have an auditorium that has 30 rows of seats, I have him up. I have the top row of seats full, and I have the row in front of him with everybody out of it. I hypnotize people on stage and the people in the farthest row up there. And he's the one that's doing all the physical movements up there with the people. And he brings the deep subjects back down on stage. So we have like 2 inductions going on at the same time, but they're probably 75 yards apart. It works really well. I've done that a number of times. But there's all different configurations you can use, all different inductions you can use. People think you have to use a certain kind of music. Use the kind of music that they like. If you're doing a country theme, use country music. You don't have to have the words, but use country music. And when I do the National FFA convention, I use country music. If I do a college show, I use more upbeat music that's very contemporary. So you don't have to use the real slow, lethargic type music to hypnotize people. So there's all these things you can learn by doing, and I've made all the mistakes, fans. I've made all the mistakes. Don't you make the mistakes. Learn from me. Learn from Tom, he'll be there. Learn from David, he'll be there. Corey will be there. And there'll be several other very talented hypnotists who will also be there to join us. Again, we're going to do another blab in 2 weeks. Corey, why don't you take it from here?
Yep.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, David.
Okay. So Tom and David, look for communication from me. We might actually have you guys back to discuss some more of this with us. We've been asked for 2 more handsome co-hosts. So thank you guys very much, and we'll see you again soon.
All right, guys. Thanks.
Corey.
And Corey, one of the people did ask if this was going to be shown again.
Yes, so we are recording this webinar. Give us a little bit of time to grab it from the Blab servers and get it uploaded. We are going to put it up on the Wand Enterprises YouTube channel, and we will send out a newsletter. We'll send out a newsletter with the link to the video in it when it goes up. So if you are not subscribed to our newsletter, Kenda just posted the link over here in the chat. JimWandStageTraining.com. You should get a little pop-up. If you don't, in the menu bar is a subscribe to our newsletter button. Go ahead and press that, put your email address in, sign up, and we will get you these tips and tricks out. We are basing a lot of these blabs, at least initially, on the content that is going to be in the classes. And so Jim's giving you guys a ton of valuable information on these calls. There's a ton of value. You probably would have had to pay somebody $1,000 for a private mentorship just to get this information that we shared tonight. There are not a lot of stage hypnotists that are really willing to come on a live webinar and share their secrets with the world, but Jim's definitely shared some good information with you tonight. I also have a couple of announcements to make. As of right now, our registration is live. Registration is live. We are limiting the number of seats this year. There are a select number of spots, so make sure you register early, and I will tell you why. Not only do you get a $200 early bird discount if you register in week 1, but we have 4 other special bonuses for you, but you only get the bonuses if you register at certain marks. The first bonus is available for 3 weeks after the early bird, and that is the ability to go on a one-on-one on-the-road mentorship with Jim. That's available only to people who sign up in the first 3 weeks after the early bird is done. The second bonus is 2 one-hour mentoring calls or a DVD review of your show from Jim. That's only available for the people that sign up within 5 weeks of the end of the early bird. Then we have the third one is, what's the third one, Jim? I have to look at the website.
You got me right there. Too quick. We put these all together.
Oh, you get a free weight loss or stop smoking seminar. So Jim has 2 very powerful programs to increase your income. They are group seminars for weight loss and smoking cessation. That's our fourth bonus. You get one of those, either the smoking or the weight, for free. Go ahead.
And Corey, also these weight seminar, we're actually going to offer live one night during the time I'm there with you, so you get a chance to see me do it with actual participants.
Yeah, absolutely, hands-on.
Materials to take back and utilize yourself for extra income if you'd like.
Right, and the last bonus is a USB drive with all 32 of Jim's self-hypnosis programs on them. So those are timed bonuses, though. So the earlier you sign up, the more bonuses you get. So if you sign up before next Thursday in addition to the 4 physical bonuses, you will also get a $200 early bird discount. So go out to the website. Those bonuses are listed near the sign-up form on the website. You can see all the details. You're not going to find anything else like this. A lot of the other people that do hypnosis trainings will tell you your manual is free. We'll give you some books. We'll give you some pre-produced DVDs, but very few of them will offer you live mentorship, will offer you the ability to go on the road, and Jim is offering that all, but only if you sign up early. I know this sounds a little bit like an infomercial, and I apologize for that, but guys, I have been mentoring with Jim for 2.5 years, and I have received more real hands-on value from the time I have spent with Jim than if I had bought 100 books. If you have the opportunity to do that and you get it free for signing up for the training, I think you should really take advantage of it because it has done wonders for me. So we just got a question actually in the inbox. How do I sign up for the training? For those of you that are not alumni, that are not returning folks, for new students, go to the website, read all about the training, scroll to the bottom, and there is a button where you add the training to your cart. If you are alumni, if you are returning to the seminar, look for an email from us early next week because alumni get a slightly different configuration for coming back. So if you're an alumni, send Kenda an email, ksummers@hypnotism.com, or give us a call here at the office, and we'll take care of you. For the new students, go ahead and sign up right now on the website. Don't let it get away from you because we are limiting registration so everybody gets the time and attention that they deserve.
And Corey, the next lab is probably going to be on the 30th or 31st of March. If there's anybody out there listening now that would like any questions answered during that lab, feel free to send them in ahead of time. And also, you know, if you have a question, a personal question about something that's happening with you on stage that you need some initial, immediate information on, send me an email. You know, I'll respond to you. If there's anything I can do to help you, I'd rather have you be out there and be successful. Other people will see you being successful. They're going to rebook you. The entire hypnosis community is going to look better in the eyes of the general public, and that's what I want to see. So hopefully you'll get a chance to come to the next lab. Stay on board, and maybe we'll even see you at the casino in June.
Definitely. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you very much.
Take care.